welcome back to Von Doomfest. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've braved the days with Captain America with us, and we are, as previously mentioned in the last episode, we are on our way to Doomsday, the first appearance of Dr. Victor Von Doom in the MCU. And to memorialize that, we are looking at all the MCU movies, but really we're just looking at each of the major characters along the way. As I said, we did cover Captain America last time, and HP just had a burning desire, a need to transform, and the listeners agreed with him. Every vote was for the Hulk. So, motherfucker, here we are. HP, say hi to everybody. You know the drill.
HP smash! I'm so excited for this. Very excited. How are you doing, Father Malone?
I'm all right. This is, I'll just say it here, my least favorite Marvel Comics book character.
Really?
Yeah. I have never really indulged in the comics at all. I have spent some time because, look, obviously in Marvel, all the characters cross over all the time. So you can't really throw a brick without hitting the Hulk at a certain point in whatever your favorite title happens to be. But like sitting down and reading Incredible Hulk, I was just never interested. I am not by nature a werewolf fan. He's like my least favorite of the sort of major movie arcana when it comes to horror icons. I do not like the transformation. I do not like the idea of becoming the super thing and you aren't in control of it. That's, to me, is mental.
Sure, and that's fair. But for me, it's almost as if I didn't really have a choice, Father Malone. Along with Spider-Man, the Hulk was a really formative comic for me when I was little, because probably due in no small part to the TV adaptations of both characters. But when I was a kid, Marvel published these digest-sized collections of probably the first 20 or so issues of the Hulk. I'm sure there were probably a bunch of them, but I had the Hulk and Spider-Man. My mom would take me to the Danvers News Agency. Do you remember the Danvers News Agency?
That's where I bought the first, the initial Dark Knight Returns. I was able to score there.
Wow, that's fantastic. So you know that it's really an old school newsstand, the likes of which don't really exist much anymore. They're still around, though.
That was also where I bought the Fangoria magazine that had printed my letter. So I remember that newsstand very fondly.
Sure. I loved it. And I know it's still there. Like I said, I haven't been there in many years, so I'm heartened that they're still there. But anyway, my mom would pick up these digests for me, and I would read them voraciously. I still have them somewhere. I would carry them everywhere. I probably reread these things 150 times. And so that's how I got to know the Hulk. To me, the Hulk didn't exist in a comic book at that point. I just got these little paperback digests. And these early appearances went through the whole Rick Jones thing. Rick Jones, a character that, to my knowledge, has never really existed in any other form. He wasn't in the movies. He wasn't in the TV show.
I actually do know that one. I do know that Rick Jones is the reason we have the Hulk, because he's a dickhead who doesn't know where to park his car.
Yeah, he was the punk kid, for those who don't know. Bruce Banner was going to set off the gamma bomb experiment, and Rick Jones, being a punk kid, drove out there to be an asshole, and Banner goes out there to stop him. They can't stop the countdown, so he shoves Rick into a ditch to save him, and Banner's the one who gets bathed in the gamma radiation that ultimately turns him into the Hulk. But there's all sorts of weird twists and turns in the book that most people aren't privy to. The werewolf analogy that you mentioned earlier, that's apt, because he would turn into the Hulk at night. So they would do things like they had a bunker that Rick would basically imprison Bruce in at night so that he wouldn't go out and wreak havoc. And
it's all werewolf shit.
It really is. And I do understand your point about he's like a hero against his will. It's really a sad situation for Bruce Banner, because through no fault of his own, he's turning into this raging behemoth who might kill people and cause massive destruction anywhere he goes. But
that's a problem, man. I do not enjoy that as an archetype. It's very scary.
It is. So I think I'm a little bit pre-programmed to liking it, because that was my world to a degree, these comics, the Hulk and so forth. And also these digests would feature not just Jack Kirby's inimitable art style, but also artists like Steve Ditko would put their own stamp on the character. It was great for me. I loved it. One last note on the comic books, Father Malone. Recently, in the last, I think it was probably maybe 2 or 3 years ago, Marvel put out basically a series of comics called Grand Design, which was, I don't, had you ever read them? Let me ask you that.
I've never even heard of them.
So it was a series that took popular characters like the Hulk or the Fantastic Four and would retell their whole history from inception to current day, essentially as a single unified narrative. They're awesome. They covered the X-Men. That was Ed Piskor, who we know from Hip Hop Family Tree. He did the X-Men. There was a Fantastic Four. Jim Rugg did the Hulk Grand Design. And one of the great things about this series is that they highlight all the essential themes and motifs of the character that recur over the decades through different storylines and artists and so forth. And in this case, this is more to your point, Father Malone. The cyclical nature of the Hulk is basically the constant demonization of the Hulk by other heroes, the world at large. It seems like every other day there's some catastrophe that's blamed on the Hulk. And some
He did
banishment.
it. He did it all.
No, he didn't. That's the thing. Sometimes that's just one of the sad truths about the character is that he might be trying to help somebody, but because he's this big, scary behemoth, he gets blamed for something. So it seems like there's always some catastrophe, some banishment or slim hope of a cure that's taken away time and time again.
It's like it's an aspirational episode of Taxi in comic book form.
It truly is. But I would encourage anybody who has even a little bit of interest in the history of the Hulk, seek out Jim Rugg's Hulk Grand Design. Any of the issues in the series are fantastic, but the Hulk is interesting in that respect because you don't think about this. When it's looking at a life, the day-to-day stuff kind of escapes you, but then you look at the 30,000-foot view and you're like, wow, this is a really sad, misunderstood character. So recommendation there for the listeners.
Tragic. Now, the Incredible Hulk appeared in issue number 1 of The Incredible Hulk, which came out in May of 1962. As HP already told you, this was Stan Lee and Jack Kirby collaboration, which basically means Jack Kirby created every fucking interesting thing about the Hulk, and Stan Lee just said, "It was my idea, everybody. I liked the Frankenstein monster, and so I made a Frankenstein, and I combined him with Dr. Jekyll."
Excelsior.
Yeah, he took Frankenstein and crammed him into a werewolf body, is basically his big innovation for this. But Kirby on his own had said that he also drew a little story called The Hulk, and that it was all his. So who the fuck knows, except it's Jack Kirby, who just got his own street name, by the way, in Brooklyn. You see that?
I saw I just through social media, I saw that he was honored. And, you know, he deserves all the honors. Let's be honest. Jack Kirby is basically almost single-handedly responsible for comic books as we know them today.
I feel about Stan Lee the way I feel about Chuck Jones. I don't think Chuck Jones I think he was obviously a very talented animator. He did some of my favorite cartoons of all time, but my favorite cartoons? No. There's an entire studio worth of directors and writers and animators that I think were way more talented than Chuck Jones. But you know what he did? He outlived them all. So it was him. It was all him.
And that's Stan Lee in a nutshell right there. He lived long enough. He outlived all of his peers, all the people who might lay some claim to these characters in these comic books. Not to totally denigrate his contributions, because if nothing else, he really kept Marvel going as a kind of a P.T. Barnum type character.
No question. So, he was the standard bearer for Marvel Comics for his entire life. I'm not taking that away from him. I'm not taking away his creative contributions. But it's just like we all think Stan Lee did everything, and really he did maybe a quarter.
Yeah, so that's a regrettable situation. Has been the Kirby estate's been fighting that for a long time, but.
In some cases, it feels like the producer who steps in with a tambourine during a session and goes, "Oh, now I get some extra money."
I guess that's a pretty good comparison as well.
All right.
So that got us going. But let me ask you this, Father Malone.
Yes.
You weren't a fan of the comics. What was your opinion of the TV show?
I fucking loved it, of course. It was the greatest thing ever, because probably what you're driving at, the tragic nature of the character, that was central to the TV show. And look, I was 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Any superhero on TV was getting my attention, and without any reservation, even though it wasn't my favorite character. Sure, I would have liked a Captain America movie, and then I didn't after I saw it. But
Yeah. I mean, I really believed as a 7-year-old, I believed that Bill Bixby was transforming into the Hulk. They did enough with the prosthetics and the fact that you would see him partially transform with the contact lenses and everything else. An impressionable me always, it wasn't until later that I was understood that it was Lou Ferrigno was the Hulk and Bill Bixby was David Banner. It was interesting. I don't know. I ate it up as a kid.
do you remember a time when, in order to find out how movies were made and ruin the magic, you had to go do the work? It wasn't just everywhere. It wasn't included on the copy of the movie. Here's a behind the scenes thing, and here's a commentary, tell you everything that happens about it. So it was very easy in our childhood to be still dazzled by movies. There was no one telling us how any of the effects were doing, how the effects were being made, because nobody knew.
No one knew. The information we got in dribs and drabs was through newspaper articles, the odd magazine piece in Cinefex or Fangoria or something like that. Yeah, it kind of preserved the mystery of the whole thing. And it made you be a better fan because you'd have to seek it out. It wasn't just given to you, just falling out of thin air. You had to really work to find out this stuff.
I found out, unfortunately, because on some Saturday morning, Lou Ferrigno was featured in some thing, and I was just like, oh, it's the Hulk. And the illusion was shattered. If the illusion ever stuck. Anyway, I do know that I did love that version of the Hulk, because that sensitive Hulk thing is what you definitely got on the show. This isn't wanton destruction Hulk, which he does a lot in the comic books.
Yeah.
Leveling entire cities, basically. And thank God they had no budget and it was TV, because I wouldn't want that version of Lou Ferrigno's Hulk. He was a gentle giant. He was Frankenstein more so than he is in the comic here.
In the show, yeah. And also, let's take a moment to appreciate both the iconic theme song to the Hulk with that piano that got the heart pumping, and the footage of him going into the machine to get gamma rays, and then, of course, the sad Hulk theme, the lament or whatever at the end. I mean, that still takes me back to that show every time I hear either of those pieces.
I will say the opening sequence remains exciting to this day.
Yeah, I agree. The tempo of it, yeah.
And the images we're getting, and I can't wait by the time the show starts to see the show. And then, of course, it's now a crashing disappointment afterwards. But as a child, nothing was going to beat it. And the end theme is the most depressing theme song of all time. This is how you send him off. And I get it. It's thematically, it's great. But at 7 or 8 years old, I didn't know why I was so sad in bed.
I mean, ultimately what we were getting was a riff on The Fugitive, because you had David Banner becoming a drifter, going from town to town, just trying to mind his own business. And you had Mr. McGee, the reporter, the dogged reporter, who he knows that Banner is involved and he's chasing him. So that's essentially what we got. You could have taken the gamma stuff, the superhero stuff out of it, and it would essentially be The Fugitive. So we weren't getting the superhero extravaganza that we were promised as children, but it was enough. We only had 3, maybe 4 networks, 3 major networks and 1 or 2 local networks. So it was enough for us.
Do you know this show had already been greenlit and was a success, pretty big success for CBS at the time. And then they did those other TV movies. So they did a Doctor Strange and they did Captain America and Captain America 2. Evidently, the ratings for those Captain America movies were really good. But there was a regime change at CBS, and the incoming people didn't want to be known as the Superhero Network. So they canceled every other project but had to keep the Hulk on because it was already a ratings winner.
It's unthinkable now, because what network wouldn't kill to have a taste of that? The MCU, right? I mean, Disney Plus has it all now. But it's worth remembering that back then, it was still considered kid stuff, and it was maybe considered a little bit embarrassing to be doing men in tights, doing superhero things. Again, unthinkable now. But
let's put it in perspective. We're talking about it took 4 decades before we could accept superheroes as moving characters on screen. Really?
Yeah.
With the
But we
occasional
also
Superman or Batman extravaganza. Yeah, but it remained a spectacle. It's not like we'd
right.
watch them living lives and having their own TV shows and features.
It is kind of surprising that even after Superman, which kind of set the template for superhero movies for decades, that they weren't it wasn't a bigger trend. It didn't ignite the world, and all of a sudden you had like what we have now, which is a different superhero movie, at least for a while, every 4 or 5 months. It kind of came and went and did its thing, and eventually Canon Films ran the Superman franchise into the ground. But you're right. It took forever for them to get the formula correct.
And for the public to accept it. Don't forget
Right.
that.
That's true. But also don't forget that the Hulk TV series was enough of a success and was still in the public's consciousness that eventually, remember, they did two or three TV movies when we were in high school. Who can forget The Incredible Hulk Returns with Eric Kramer as Thor? And then I think it was The Trial of the Incredible Hulk, which had Rex Smith as Daredevil. I mean, it's ridiculous now to think.
HP and I did an episode on this. I'll link it in the show notes so everyone will go listen to our Trial of the Incredible Hulk episode. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, if you want the drill down, definitely go there. But it's impressive that it still kind of lingered in the public consciousness to the degree that probably, 15 years after the original show was long gone, they still kind of brought it back.
But I would argue that the Hulk was much more accepted as a superhero because he wasn't a superhero necessarily. When people think superhero, they think capes and they think tights and they think pirate boots. And the Hulk is just a monster. If it was not Bruce Banner, the Incredible Hulk, this is our take on The Fugitive. It just so happens to be he turns into a werewolf. It could have been as equally popular. I mean, not a werewolf murders people, so probably not. But maybe if he, I don't know. You get what I'm saying.
He's a beast. He's a beast more so than a hero, an uncontrollable beast, but one with a soul. And
it's not like the Hulk ever stopped and said, "Wait here, everyone! I'm going to knock that wall down, and we'll all be free." It's not. It wasn't like Superman. Hello, citizens.
No capes. Yeah, no capes. The closest he had to that were those purple pants that miraculously never seemed to tear apart. But then Father Malone. That brings us into 2003 and the miraculous announcement that Ang Lee, of all people, was set to direct Hulk, the movie Hulk. You remember this?
Oh, of course. Eric Bana.
Yeah.
Fresh from the set of Black Hawk Down. That's the first time I saw him in anything. Had no idea he was a sketch comedian and a fucking goofy human being. No idea the range that guy had. Although I did remember at the end of Black Hawk Down with all of that talent on display thinking, who was that one guy?
Yeah. Incredible range. He did that movie Chopper, which for me kind of put him on the map. He was protean in the same way that someone who wasn't afraid to bulk up for, like Tom Hardy. He was a template for what Tom Hardy eventually did also. But I remember being
But
so
Tom
excited.
Hardy didn't have a fucking comedy variety show where he was a goofball for a half hour every week.
True. What has Eric Bana been doing recently?
He did a fantastic Australian-based thriller called The Dry, and I think they just made a sequel to it. That was really good. I just saw him in the film Apex. I think that's on Netflix. It's the Charlize Theron, Taron Egerton survived thriller. He plays Charlize Theron's husband at the beginning.
Oh, interesting. I had no idea. He was super popular for a number of years, and he was very actively working. And then it just feels like you don't really see him a whole lot these days. But it's good to hear that he's got all kinds of stuff going on. By the way, you know who I was surprised to find out was also an Australian actor? Anthony LaPaglia.
Yeah. I heard that when... Actually, I heard that from John Landis. I was at a convention at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles, and John Landis was there to promote Innocent Blood. And just in casual conversation, went, and Anthony's Australian. And I went, what?
Yeah, he did a movie that I came across. What was it? It was an Australian kind of crime, thriller, romance, melodrama. And it was the first movie, I don't recall the name of it, unfortunately, but it was the first time I heard him talk in his native accent, and I was like, this is crazy, because I had seen him in so many. He usually played a cop, like a New York cop. That was kind of his thing, and he was perfect.
I always thought he was from Brooklyn.
Yeah, amazing. Anyway, that's a little side trip there. But let me ask you, Father Malone, what was your opinion of the 2003 Hulk with Ang Lee directing? Nick Nolte too.
I appreciated the attempt at breaking the screen into panels for transitions and for action sequence. I think the final fight between the Hulk and Nick Nolte's now electric character in the clouds is as beautiful as anything we've gotten in the 24 years since in a superhero movie. I think Nick Nolte's great in it. I think Eric Bana is great in it. I think they're both in the wrong movie. I think it is ponderous, and I think Ang Lee convinced himself that this is a tragedy with some action in it. Or vice versa. I don't know. I can't quite figure it out. The tone is always all over the place. You never really get to know Bruce Banner at all, other than we get little crumbs of the childhood. But we keep getting those as flashbacks through it. He's a cipher in this movie, which I did not understand. I thought the dog scene was ridiculous. I thought
the Hulk dogs?
Yeah. I thought it was precious little Hulk in a movie called Hulk.
I agree. It was certainly the first half was very ponderous because it had this mature sort of melodramatic vibe to it. But I remember seeing it. I went to a late show. I lived at the time, the apartment I was living in right across the highway was a movie theater, and I would just sometimes go just at night, just by myself. I'd go, hey, I got nothing else to do. I might as well catch a movie.
That was the Woburn Showcase 10 where I was an usher for a few years.
That's exactly right. I was living in Woburn at the time. Anyway, I dug when we finally get the Hulk at the end, basically the last half of the movie, or quarter. Let's call it the last 3/4 of the movie or so.
No, let's call it the last quarter of the movie.
Last quarter. That's what I meant. Not 3/4. Last quarter. But I went back and rewatched it recently, and I actually think it was a lot better than I remembered it being. The action is good. They had at least the guts to show the Hulk in full daylight. When we get to the 2008 iteration with Ed Norton, it suffers from the sort of everything is dark and wet. You could barely see the Hulk in a lot of the scenes. It's like they're trying to hide him. But at least in this one, though the effects certainly aren't up to scratch for today, for the time, I thought they were very good. And there's some interesting action bits. There's a sequence where he's squaring off against 2 or 3 tanks, which is really good. And
here's what I have to say about that one scene, because I got so excited. I think the entire theater got so hyped when he ripped the turret off of the one tank, and then he starts pounding the barrel of it in his hand like a fucking bat, and everyone was like, oh shit, what's he gonna do? And then he throws it away.
Time out for 1 second. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm recording. What's up? Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I gotta pee.
That's okay. Right, I'm back. Madeline she works for this camp over the summer, and they had a night where she scooped ice cream, and it was like one of these sort of events for the people involved in the camp. Anyway, she wanted to bring me up to speed.
Right on.
All right, so we were talking about Ang Lee. You talk about the baseball bat thing, and you hyped for it.
Yeah, and then he tosses the fucking barrel. He tosses this weapon away, and I was like, oh. And then he just kind of bangs on the tank a little bit more, and then he's off and jumping because this is a hopping Hulk.
But I appreciated that because those early comics, that's how he got around. He would leap from place to place. So I kind of dug that.
Hulk hop for locomotion. Here's what I'll say about the rest of that. Here's what I'll say about the rest of that movie. This is one of my favorite lines of all time. Turn it into a parking lot.
Oh, Sam Elliott.
Your parking lot's ready, General.
And that was bizarre because they're in the middle of these rock formations in the desert, and he's basically saying, yeah, get rid of that monument. We don't need that.
Yeah, basically John Ford's Monument Valley just leveled because he wants to capture one green man.
But some of those effects I think still do kind of hold up. And I love that sequence at the end where he's fighting his father who's turned into pure electricity. So there's a lot it's ultimately a failed experiment, but at least it kept the Hulk in the public consciousness in an interesting way.
Midnight viewers, this is a visual joke I'm doing just for HP. Best part of the movie, man. What a choice. I'm talking about Nick Nolte when he's sitting in the chair and he starts calling Eric Bana a baby, basically. He's going, wah! And he starts flailing his arms up and down. Oh, my God.
It's the Nick Nolte experience that you sign up for,
By the
really.
way, you see his look in that movie, and at the time he got arrested for drunk driving, and he
Oh
looked
yeah.
exactly like that. And when everyone saw the mugshot, they were like, "What the fuck is wrong with Nick Nolte?" As it turns out, he was making a movie, you assholes.
He was in makeup. His hair was all messed up because that was the character. Yeah, I mean it was silly in retrospect. But no, I ended up liking it better than I remember liking it. So it was good. And actually, that's not true. That's disingenuous. I enjoyed it when I saw it for the first time, and I thought it held up pretty good.
I do think that last quarter of the movie is definitely worth watching.
Yeah, for sure. And for those who don't want to invest the time, all that stuff is up on YouTube. Those scenes in particular. So if you don't want to go through the whole movie, then check it out a la carte.
I am not linking it in the show notes. Go do your own Hulk work.
Yeah, man. What are we here for? Do your own legwork.
So that'd be the end of the Hulk for 6 long years. But then, oh boy, Marvel's making their own studio now. It's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We got to get the Avengers on screen as quickly as possible. Get them out there. Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and of course the Hulk. Interesting choices continue. Edward Norton suddenly decides he wants to play the Hulk. What'd you think of
What's interesting?
Edward Norton as
Well,
Bruce Banner?
it's interesting. Depending on what interview you read, there's some conjecture that the director of that movie, Louis Leterrier, wanted Mark Ruffalo from the start, but apparently Marvel was pushing for a bigger name, so they went with Ed Norton. That's just because there's this like a lot of conjecture around why they replaced Ed Norton with Mark Ruffalo, which we'll get to. For me,
Oh, we know why. Because Edward Norton is probably a
he's a pain in the
cocksucker
ass.
behind the scenes. Yeah. And was heavily involved with the editing and making it his movie.
That we saw it happen with American History X, right?
Yeah. I mean,
So
there's a pattern at play.
I, to be really honest, and this is a kind of a roundabout way of answering your question, Father Malone, I didn't love the Incredible Hulk movie, that movie from 2008. It was obviously a very clear attempt to translate the TV show into a movie because I mean the credits, my God, they directly reference the credits from the TV show, and it's the same character who's going. In this case, he's searching for a cure, but he's going from place to place,
He's
trying to be an
making
artist.
everywhere he goes better.
Right. Exactly. In this
Just
case,
like
he's in,
Dr. Richard Kimball.
and as the movie begins, what he's at a Brazilian favela. He's working at a bottling plant and doing all these things to try and keep his aggression down. Anyway, he's okay. To me, Ed Norton doesn't really put a big stamp on the character. I think the character is just there going through the motions of what you would expect Banner to go through, but to me, it didn't really have any panache to it. It was like a little bit paint by numbers. What did you think?
I felt like we needed to have Ed Norton's origin story. Even though we all know that origin story, we needed to see that guy become the Hulk. We got the guy already suppressing the Hulk, and he doesn't even need too much in the movie. I wanted to see more of a war between Bruce Banner and his alter ego.
I agree, but it just felt dry and flavorless. They just kind of go through the motions of what you would think a Hulk movie would provide, but no one really. It just was okay. It wasn't exciting. It didn't take any chances either.
Well, here's what I noticed when I was watching it: that Stark Tech showed up at one point with they have these audio cannons that they're shooting at, and that was all Stark Industry stuff, and that got me excited because it was real. All of a sudden, they were going to start cross pollinating these films. I think that the sequence that I'm describing, where they're hitting him with the sonic cannons, that whole action sequence, I really enjoyed. I'm going
Oh
to
yeah,
say all the action scenes are actually really good. I loved the fight in Harlem, as a matter of fact. And it got really gothic up there. I mean, they really returned to the Frankenstein origins with this on top of this cathedral-like structure. I thought that was all very beautiful. So I liked all the action in it. I loved Tim Roth as Emil Blonsky, and I really like the Abomination. I mean, he's now looks exactly like the Abomination was supposed to look from the get-go, which is kind of fishy. But this one I thought was scary and a good foil for the Hulk in this movie.
I didn't really. I love Tim Roth. Let me just preface what I'm about to say by saying that, but I just didn't buy him as this badass commando type who's eager to go toe to toe with the Hulk. The Abomination stuff is good, and it's as far as pixels fighting other pixels, it was fine. I didn't think it
That's
was
every fucking movie in the MCU. You can't say that. You can't dismiss this movie because we were watching a cartoon for a little while. That's
no,
the entire end of the Avengers.
but it's what I said. It's everything is in darkness and wet to cover up the artificiality of the computer graphic. This movie suffers greatly from that. But what I think is more intriguing about this movie, if nothing else, is they were, at least at the time, they were planning on making this more than just one movie because there's a lot of stuff that never ever pays off in subsequent movies. Ty Burrell, who is one of my favorites because I think Modern Family is one of the greatest sitcoms ever made. Okay, and he's a big part of that. He is in The Incredible Hulk. He plays a psychologist who is effectively Betty Ross's boyfriend in Bruce's absence. His character's name is Dr. Leonard Sampson. Dr. Sampson was a prominent character in the comic book. He's another guy who at some point they siphoned off gamma radiation from Bruce in an attempt to save his life. And Doc Samson absorbed that extra radiation and he becomes a beefcakey type of character he's not green, but he has green hair, long flowing hair, kind of looks like Fabio a little bit.
My kind of guy.
But what I think is intriguing is that's the character that in essence Ty Burrell is playing in this movie. So it makes me wonder, were they planning on making him into Doc Samson sometime down the road? Probably not, but it's a very interesting what if to think, what if Ty Burrell was somehow part of the MCU in this way?
Martin Starr is a student in this, and he's playing Amadeus Cho. They don't pay that off either.
I suspect some of this will be surprises for when we get Doomsday/Secret War. I'd be surprised if they didn't start to pay off some of these.
And
in a way,
would they not also, in chopping off all the timelines and variants, bring back Edward Norton? That would be really cool. Bring back Eric Bana as all the Bruces?
Yeah. That would be incredible. No pun intended, or pun intended, but yeah, that would be really cool. So anyway, the Incredible Hulk movie, the one from '08 we're talking about here, there's a lot of interesting things at play, but to me, it just felt, I don't know, it didn't really excite me. I don't know. I wanted to like it because I like the character, but it just left me flat.
Well, can't argue with flat, man. Moving on. Although let's mention the end of the movie that got deleted, which is Bruce goes to the Arctic to kill himself. And when he tries to do, the Hulk spits the bullet back out. He tells the story in the Avengers movie.
Right.
But it was actually filmed with Ed Norton. And the Hulk smashing the ice apart was going to dislodge the plane that held Captain America.
That would have actually improved my estimation of the movie if they could have linked that up, because that makes sense, right? And that gives you that link between Cap and the Hulk.
It does, but you know what? I'm glad they didn't, because I love the opening of First Avenger where it's all Raiders of the Lost Ark in the Arctic, where find the edges kind of stuff.
Exactly. So then that brings us to, well, it really brings us to the Avengers. It brings us to Mark Ruffalo, right?
Absolutely. And now, thanks to Universal holding on to the rights to the Hulk as long and as hard as they could, we're not going to get a Hulk solo movie. I think they can do one now. I think the rights are finally up.
But to work around that, though, I mean, they were clever in that they can't give him his own movie, but he can be a sidekick in another movie. And that obviously is Thor Ragnarok right there, which still remains one of my favorite MCU movies. I think it's brilliant. I think he is the perfect foil for Thor. I love the fact that they took the Planet Hulk storyline and transposed that here. I loved the Hulk in this. I love Mark Ruffalo in this. I think he's a fantastic actor. He's a great comic actor, and they play off of each other beautifully. Who doesn't? Sorry, go ahead.
We've reached the end of the actors who have now live action played the Hulk with Mark Ruffalo. So let's rank them, shall we?
Okay.
We don't need to put them in order. Just give me. Well, there's only 5. I guess we could put them in order.
Yeah.
But who worst to best? Bruce Banner, not Hulk.
So just Bruce Banner. The worst for me is Ed Norton, because I just found this performance lacking.
Wow. By process of elimination, I'm going to put Ed Norton on the bottom as well.
And in fairness, he didn't really have a lot of time to put his stamp on the character because he only had that one shot at the opportunity. So it's not necessarily his fault that he only got one time to do it, but he didn't wow me. So yeah, he's on the bottom. I would say probably from there, it would be, what, Lou Ferrigno?
No, just Bruce Banner.
Oh, I'm sorry. I meant Bill Bixby. Excuse me.
Ha, they're so interchangeable. Yeah, I would put Bill Bixby there too, because it's a version of the character, and he's playing him very well, but really, that's not Bruce Banner.
It's not. It's not. In fact, it's not. It's David Banner, because I think we talked about this. They didn't like the connotation of Bruce Banner. They thought the name sounded effeminate at the time.
They said gay. They said gay.
So instead of it being Bruce Banner, which is the classic comic book alliteration like Lois Lane, they went with David Banner.
Which is ridiculous because Bruce Banner's actual name is Robert. His middle name, Bruce. They just call him Robert.
Bob Banner, although that sounds kind of goofy.
But why make up a third? I just want to point out before we move on from that conversation that the reason his name is Robert Bruce Banner is because Stan Lee, in one of the issues of Incredible Hulk, called him Robert in one issue, and it had been Bruce, and then the fans freaked out, and he said, oh no, his name is Robert Bruce Banner, but it was an actual mistake.
It was a lack of continuity on his part. So anyway, it would be, well, there's only really three, right? So we put Ed Norton on the bottom. We have Bill Bixby, no disrespect, and then Mark Ruffalo. He's clearly the best.
Then Eric Bana.
Oh, you're right. Then I want to recalibrate. I put Eric Bana below Bill Bixby, I guess, because as you said, he's a cipher and he doesn't really have a lot of. Oh, actually, you know what? Maybe put him ahead of Bill Bixby.
Yeah, here's the thing. I didn't like the characterization or lack of in his movie, but not for his lack of performance. I thought he did great with what he was given.
It's fair. So,
do you know that when they made that movie, they didn't even let him motion capture because Ang Lee wanted to do all of the Hulk action himself?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and when I said it out loud, now it just occurred to me that's why he probably decided to do the movie, because he thought, oh, I can do this, it'll be fun, I can be Hulk, and it's this new technology, and blah, blah, blah.
Sure. So yeah, I think probably the best is clearly Mark Ruffalo. Just below that is Eric Bana, Bill Bixby, and then Ed Norton at the bottom.
Norton? Yeah, last again, Norton.
That's another very relevant, current reference for our listeners, the honeymooners.
Yeah, we're old. So what? Our listeners are our age, so I'm not that concerned about it.
Can I bring up one thing that kind of bugged me if we were talking about Infinity War and Endgame and the Hulk within those two movies?
Of course, we're dishing it out. We're talking all across what we liked and didn't like across the board.
So in Infinity War, they set up this notion that the Hulk has been so humiliated and scared of Thanos because he got his ass kicked that he's too scared for the duration of Infinity War to come out and fight. It's this battle where, you know, as much as Mark Ruffalo, Bruce Banner tries to get him to come out, he won't, which leads Bruce to have to use the Hulkbuster armor in the climactic fight scene, right? That never really pays off because by the time we get to Endgame, he talks about how he had this sort of thing where he came to terms with the Hulk and he merged the two personalities, but I was anticipating in the final battle, that final redemption for the Hulk. He doesn't have to kill Thanos, but he can at least get a few good licks in to get revenge for being so humiliated in that first battle. And just in general, for getting back to Thanos for everything he did. But we don't get that.
I agree with you 100%. There is no conversation going on between the Hulk and Bruce. There's just Hulk saying no every time he tries to change. Yeah. And we never get the Hulk to come out for any reason. Even if he came out and was really bad at the job now, at least we've gotten some justification other than he got his ass beat by Thanos. He's gotten his ass beat before. He didn't get his legs ripped off or anything. I mean, maybe he feels bad that he wasn't able to save Loki, but who would?
Yeah. At least, I mean, Thor gets his revenge on Thanos in the second movie for not having killed him, not going for the head, so to speak, in the first movie. So I just don't understand why Hulk didn't. I mean, I guess Hulk was incapacitated from having done the first snap that put everything back in motion, but I don't know. That always kind of rankled me a little bit.
Well, wait, didn't he? It was at the end of fucking Ultron. He takes off in the Quinjet, right?
Yes.
So then we don't see him again until Thor Ragnarok.
Correct. When he's on Sakaar.
And then, so that's when we deal with Thor and all of his buddies and their ship. By the way, This has nothing to do with anything, but I liked that when in Infinity War, when Thanos' ship is attacking the Asgardians, the voice calling out for help is Kenneth Branagh, who directed the first Thor movie.
Yeah, I read that too. Yeah, that's great. Who says, by the way, I've read recent interviews, he said he'd love to come back and do another Thor.
They should let him now that everyone knows the rules, because I liked that first Thor movie.
Well, but it was Love and Thunder was so monumentally disappointing for me and probably for a lot of people that I think as much as Taika Waititi, his direction and his aesthetic worked in Ragnarok, it just landed with a thud in Love and Thunder. And it was clear that he kind of figured, well, we can improv this and maybe do loosey-goosey and it'll be just as good. It was not just as good. So this is the time, I think, to get back to basics and give Branagh another shot.
That movie had Gore the God Killer in it. If he's there, you're not making a comedy. If you're going to make that story, then make it the fucking tragedy it is.
Yeah, so, but we'll get into that in more detail when we cover Thor, of course. But no, I was wondering why they didn't really connect the whole Hulk thing. But not to say I loved the Hulk in Endgame. I loved Smart Hulk. He was amusing but he was tough. Even when he went back, they went back to the battle in New York, and they were like, all right, he's embarrassed.
Seems gratuitous.
Yeah, and I love that. And Mark Ruffalo. He's such a good comic actor that I believe it. I don't know. He works so well as Bruce Banner. I think it's great casting.
Well, we've said it in Cap. I think we're going to say it a lot, actually. It's rare that they don't get the right person for the role for the MCU. Everyone seems dead solid perfect. I believe Mark Ruffalo as wildly intelligent Bruce Banner, and I believe all of his motion capture shit is the fucking Hulk, man.
Yeah. And the Hulk looks like him. I love the fact that you can still, it's not so much in the Ed Norton movie. There's no mistaking Mark Ruffalo is the Hulk in those movies, but you can't really see Ed Norton, I don't think, in the Little Terrier movie. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just don't see it, but I don't see the resemblance.
Well, what's funny is the Hulk in Hulk actually looks like Eric Bana as well. So I think they tried a little bit, but they gave him this long hair that Bruce didn't have. So you've already got a disconnect, and then we're just trying to find Ed Norton's features in there. It's too much to ask.
Yeah, no, I agree. But no, I mean, you don't love the character, that you made that clear, but you do have some affection for Mark Ruffalo's interpretation. That's cool.
Oh, absolutely. Hulk in the MCU I've been down with from go. I mean, what reservations I had with each of the films, the Eric Bana one and the Ed Norton one, it only added my estimation of the character and what it can be visually on screen. And I think that's where it should live and breathe.
Sure.
That's it, I guess.
I think we've covered it.
We did.
Yeah.
That was remarkably easy.
That was smooth sailing.
Oh my God. I guess we've reached the end. Gamma radiated ourselves to the end of the podcast, HP. And that's going to be the end of this particular Von Doom Fest. But in, I guess, 2 weeks' time, y'all, unless you go on the Patreon channel, cough up some dough. We're going to be covering, who are we covering next?
I don't know.
I'm not trusting the viewers this time.
No. You didn't like that we did the Hulk now?
Well, now that we got it out of the way and it was painless, yeah, I enjoyed it. And now I'll look forward to other characters coming down the pike.
Well, we already mentioned him. Do you want to do Thor?
Not really.
Okay. Do you want to do Spider-Man?
Ooh, that's so tempting. Let's save that. That's a real treat.
That's another
man.
for me.
Every version of Spider-Man I've enjoyed, honestly.
Well, who else do we have to choose from here?
Namor!
No. Fantastic Four we could touch on?
Let's do Fantastic Four. Let's do it now, because I don't want to do it when we get as close to Doomsday, because obviously Doom is a Fantastic Four villain. Yeah, let's tackle them. They've got a pretty rich history, live action-wise.
Yeah, which we've already covered some of that in other episodes, right?
Yeah, but I won't link that in this show. I'll link it in that show.
There you go. Perfect.
And until that next show, HP, where can people find you?
I co-host the Night Mr. Walters, the Taxi podcast, alongside the good father here. And I host the Noise Junkies music podcast. And finally, I have a Bandcamp site, hpmusicplace.bandcamp.com.
As for me, you're listening to it midnight viewing. It's on twice a week. Every Friday is Father Malone's Weekly Roundup. Every Monday is either a fest like this one or an examination of an anthology horror television series, which Mike White and I are currently wrapping up our final episode of Hammer House of Horror. Onward we go. We're looking down the road to Roald Dahl's Tales of the Unexpected. We've already got the first couple of episodes in the can. Those are on the Patreon channel. You can find all that stuff, patreon.com/fathermalone. If you want to write to me specifically, fathermalone71@gmail.com. I'll also throw the link tree in there so you can find all of my other crazy shit. Go to Instagram, folks, because that's where I post all these crazy animated things featuring cartoon me and HP. And until next time, everyone, try to enjoy the daylight. Hulk smash.